Hello, FlossTube Stitchers. This is Shelly at Just Stitching Inc. in Strongsville, Ohio. Welcome back to my channel for video number 9 that I'm calling Mania Wrap-Up. Today I'm sitting in front of two of our freestanding fiber racks. This one over here has the Caron collection, and we have watercolors, which is a 3-ply Pima cotton, and when you separate it, one strand is equivalent to number 5 pearl cotton. They also make wildflowers, which is a 1-strand cotton, equivalent to flower thread or somewhere between 8 and 12 pearl cotton. Water lilies is a 12-ply Italian silk. They also make a solid silk under the name Soie Cristal. And impressions is a combination 50% silk, 50% wool that comes in both solid and variegated colors. And the nice thing about having fibers that come in the same colors is that you can get a multi-textural piece out of it, which may work better for a canvas piece, but we certainly have used those fibers in cross stitch as well. The other rack has mostly silk on it. We carry Belle Soie from Classic Colorworks, Dinky Dyes, Gloriana silks plus their matching silk ribbons, Painter's threads, silk plus their matching trims, and the thread gatherer. And then also on that rack is Valdani. So let's get right to my Stitch Mania. Last Sunday was the 26th, and I started In God We Trust, which is part 3 of Long May She Wave, a series from Abby Rose Designs. I'm doing it on 32 count Pearl Gray Belfast, which I've used quite a few times for wintry pieces. This might be the first time I'm using it for a patriotic piece, but I really like the way it's coming out. Then on day 27, I worked on Industrious Bee from Rosewood Manor, a beautiful sampler with a poem, and I wanted to read what the designer wrote on the back. This is Karen Kluba. I read this verse in a book about American sampler verses. It was in a sampler from the 1700s. I loved the words and was inspired to create a sampler using them. So I love it when the designer gives us a little insight to their process when they're choosing what to stitch and designing something from scratch, what their motivation is. So I love that. Here is what I got done. I worked really hard to get 2 sentences done so it wasn't like in the middle of a thought or the middle of a word. But I wanted to call your attention to the fact that you don't really see any carrying because I follow my own rules. So I teach a technique class called How to Prepare Your Work for Framing, and we talk about laundering, drying, ironing, getting out stains, how to deal with hand-dyed fibers and fabric, how to properly sew on beads, buttons, and charms, what the custom framer is and is not responsible for. And then just under the general topic of good stitching technique, I wrote this. So I'm going to cheat and read it. There are 2 basic schools of thought with regard to lettering. 1, always carry your thread directly across the bottom edge of the lettering so it looks like a line on purpose. Or 2, always carry your thread diagonally and from the shortest distance possible between letters. So let's look at that piece again. In this, it was easy for me just to do each word separately. But let's say you had something that was all back stitching. That's a little bit harder to find places to wind your floss under. So in that case, you might consider carrying your thread at the bottom of each letter and between the words so that it looked like it was being stitched on a line. Otherwise, you just go from the closest point to each, from letter to letter. You'll go from the so sometimes you're stitching from the bottom up, sometimes you're stitching from the top down, but it has a really nice look to it when it's finished. It's not distracting. The other thing that I could suggest is not to leave extra tail Once you've wound your piece under the amount of threads that you feel is necessary for the fabric and the number of strands you're using, don't leave another 1/2 inch tail hanging out. Trim it as close as possible. We see that a lot, and the thread has a mind of its own, and it wants to continue in the direction in which it was placed. So you can't just take your finger and move it and it's going to stay there. Once the framer starts stretching the piece, that thread is going to pop back in the direction that it wants to go, and nobody will have any control over it. And what happens is you're able to see the ends, which sometimes have gotten fuzzy by then. You'll see them through the holes of the linen, and it's not attractive. If you want to check and see if any of your tails are showing, or if any of your threads are carried in a less than satisfactory manner, then just put it on a piece of white printer paper and you'll be able to see, because the framer is most likely going to be stretching it over acid-free white foam core. And so you'll get the same view that she's going to get, and you can correct anything before you leave it to be framed. Okay. Day 28, I worked on Autumn, which is the secondary piece in the Sunflower Manor Chalk for the Home design. This is based on Priscilla Blaine's original chalkboard art and put into cross stitch by Kathy Haberman of Hands On Design. And I found that a 9x12 piece of black perforated paper was absolutely perfect for that project. The paper manufacturer suggests stitching with 3 strands, but I found 2 to be sufficient. I also wanted it to look like chalk on a chalkboard, so I didn't think it needed to be that filled in. Oops, I'll put that there. On day 29, I worked on Thankful Pumpkins from Lucy Beam Lovin' Stitches. Becky Noland is the designer. And I actually worked on this 2 different days, and on the first day I did 3 of the white pumpkins, and on the second day I did like 1.5 pumpkins and started putting some color into it, which was fun to see that come to life. On day 30, I actually didn't stitch, but I copped to it on social media, and I showed pictures of the Hunter Hayes concert that I went to with my niece at the Agora in downtown Cleveland. So I did get home at 11:30, and I briefly thought about stitching for half an hour before I had to post my progress. And you know, it had been a long week and a long day, and I've been fighting a head cold. And I think once I sat down, I was over it. So I just posted the photos. Hunter Hayes is a 27-year-old country music singer-songwriter that my niece and I have seen in concert before, and we've been following his progress for about 8 to 10 years now. So that was really fun. So I worked on 2 projects on the 31st. So this would have been the 30th. Spring Gathering from Scattered Seed Samplers. And I cut 2 pieces of fabric for it because a companion piece came out this year to go with it called Spring Delivery. So the first one was the girl and the second one was the little boy bunny. And this is how much I got done. This is using 1 strand of thread on one strand of thread on 32 count Cappuccino Weeks Dye Works linen. And it originally called for straw, and I kept going back and forth between straw and Cappuccino. I had a whole yard of Cappuccino. I didn't have quite as much straw. Straw seemed a little dark and a little orangey maybe, although I really liked what it looked like on the front cover of the pattern. But you know, we all have that problem because the photographs are always lighter than they appear. The fabric's always lighter, the thread is always lighter than it is in person. So I kept fighting with myself on that. And then I sold all the straw. So I didn't have it for myself, and I decided that was the perfect solution. I was just gonna work on Cappuccino because I had plenty of that, and it was really only like a shade lighter. All right, and then on day 31, I started And the Earth Sang by Silver Creek Samplers. I had been wanting to do a religious Easter piece for a while. For this I chose 30 count Aspen Weeks Dye Works, and I'm stitching with 2 strands. So that's the end of my Mania projects. Let's talk about the actual wrap up, what I stitched on. So I think I covered everything but Valentine's Day. I did 1 for St. Patrick's Day, 2 with the dog motif, 2 strawberries, 3 patriotic, 3 for spring, 3 for fall, 4 Christmas, 5 Halloween. And what do you think I stitched the most of? Do you remember a theme going through? Yep, it was bees. I did 8 of them, but seriously, I could have stitched 31 bee projects. I really could have. I had to force myself not to, which was why I chose to do 31 different designers. I really was trying to get a variety of themes. I stitched on Aida, perforated paper, even weave, and then linens in 28, 30, 32, and 36. So I did a nice range. I worked on different colors. I tried things I had never used before, and I'm really excited about all my projects and can't wait to go back to it. So because of the bee theme, this is what I chose for this week's giveaway. The June sampler from the monthly series by Sugar Stitches. All you have to do is say "me please" along with anything else you want to tell me in the comments, and I will put you in a drawing for that. And last week's giveaway was the C is for Coffee chart by Heartstring Samplery, plus her little sheet of coffee related stickers from her samplers and designs that she's done with that theme. And I really enjoyed reading how everyone drinks their coffee. It was really fun. It was different. Some people are purists, and a couple people said if it's good coffee, they drink it black, and other people put all kinds of fancy stuff in it like I do. And so anyway, it was really fun. Oh, and people said things that brought up memories for me. So when I was in high school, between junior and senior year, I was an exchange student for the summer to Paraguay. And my family was poor, and so I didn't really get food for breakfast. I got like a huge soup bowl full of half coffee, half milk with raw sugar. And I thought it was like the best thing I had ever had, but I was probably starving. Anyway, I thought that was really good, and I had almost forgotten about that. Then, when I was in college, I did an elective studying art and architecture in Italy for the month of January. And since it was their kind of cold, rainy season, I had cappuccino for breakfast every morning, and I had forgotten that too. So I guess I have been a coffee drinker for a good portion of my life, even though I don't consider myself one. Sorry, back to the giveaway. And Linda Brick is the lucky recipient of that. So Linda, give me your email so that we can touch base on getting your address and mailing that to you. Let's see, what came new this week? From Amy Brecken Designs, the Lucky 13 Club. We got the first 2 charts. The first one has the writing, and the second one has the upside down witch and the cauldron. Each chart is $10 and includes the embellishments. I knew I should have ordered more because I had pre-ordered 12, and by the time the auto came, it was all spoken for. But I'm going to order more on Monday or Tuesday. So if you haven't already pre-ordered from your LNS or another online shop, please let me know that you would like to get it. I also have several different varieties of fabric coming. I have what it calls for, which is 20 count carrot from Weeks Dye Works. It's on back order. I'm sure they're dyeing as fast as they can to keep up. Then I also have 14 count Aida and 28 count Cashel in Prank coming from Picture This Plus. And several people have requested a 32 count. I also have other fibers, greens, lavenders, grays, which would be really fun if you wanted to do those Halloween creatures on individual pieces of fabric. So let me know about that. And then one last thing, and I lost the picture here. Oh, here we go. So the Rivaris class for Sunday, July 7th, Halloween needlework accessories. Livia and Paola will both be here. The class is $100, includes all materials, including the wood base and the pin set. No pre-stitching is required. We will be stitching in class and watching the finishing demo. But if you can't come to the class and you're in the area on Saturday, July 6th, in the afternoon, you can come meet them and see their trunk show. I think I covered everything. So thanks again for watching, and I hope everyone has a great week. Bye.